So, what's the challenge? What's the problem? Why do we exist? Why are we here coaching people? Why are we training people? Why did we develop the top 1% program? Why is goal setting in action the first module? The main concept or the main challenge or problem that there is for people who want to get the most out of their performance, who want to increase their ceiling on their human performance, who they want to maximize what they can get out of an experience or the time or the energy or the money that they invest into something. They need a roadmap as to how to get there, because unless they have a close friend or someone that they've seen that they know personally that has gotten to the point where they want to, they need to know how that person did that. They need to know, they need to be able to, like Al Pacino talks about, they need to see it before they can do it. You have to understand what somebody put into something, and you have to understand how they constructed it and how they got up in the morning and how they went about their business in order to get themselves there. That how to is critical. Back in the olden days when we would drive somewhere, you'd hear a lot of times people would joke, oh, the dad didn't want to pull over to get directions, so we wasted 5 hours on vacation trying to get to where we were supposed to get. But so you didn't know there was, you know, if you didn't have a map, you definitely didn't have GPS because that didn't exist. So you'd have to pull over and ask somebody directions to someplace. And then you had to trust that they knew where you were talking about, where you were going. So you didn't know what kind of information you were going to get. It was just, well, maybe better than what you currently had, or at least that's what you thought. So you stopped and asked, or you didn't, or you just kept on stumbling and bumbling along the way, hoping you'd get there. Now with GPS and maps and everything else the way that they are now, with them being online and on our phones, you can immediately, you just have to know what the question is to be able to get a roadmap to get there. Unfortunately, without having somebody in your life who's coached somebody or trained somebody who's gotten to that level, or they've, maybe you want to get to an Ivy League school, maybe you're trying to get into a top vocational school, maybe you're trying to get hired at a firm, or whatever it is. If you're trying to do it at the highest level, or even at the highest level available to you, and you don't know somebody who's done it before and you don't know how they did that, then you don't have access to the information that you need to optimize that journey. And so what we're talking about here is not just how to get there, but the other part, and this is mission critical, and this is if you're coming from a parent standpoint or a coach's standpoint, you need to make sure that they have sweat equity, or they have a buy-in to actually want to get there, because you can't make them want to get there. If you're the coach or you're the parent or whatever, you'd have to somehow get them invested in it, and that's through doing. And obviously they need to want it. Most kids want it, but they just don't want it to the point where they're able to overcome it being uncomfortable. But how much does it need to be uncomfortable? You know, without really knowing your situation and what your goals are and what you're trying to achieve, without getting really, really, you know, shored up in that area, you don't necessarily know. Now, on top of all that, once you've got that sweat equity, now you've got a little bit of buy-in and people are like getting involved. Now you need to make sure that you're getting quality information to go upon. Because if you're getting the wrong map and the person's invested, they might actually come to the conclusion that they can't get there because they've tried their hardest with the wrong information, or inappropriate information for them, or for them where they are currently. So it's really important to understand you need to get the best information for where you are that's immediately applicable to what you need to do next. So the three top things that we do is we make sure that there's clarity, that there's ownership, and then there's direction. And those are the three biggest things that we do on a daily basis. So getting clarity, you have to know what you're dealing with, where you're trying to go, how you're going to get there, all the specifics. Those are must-haves. And you need to make sure that you invite people into your life who have been there and done that and that are not willing to throw you under the bus or have you be a casualty to try to get better the next time. Like, you're getting this chance now, you need to take advantage of that and be careful with how you treat the situation. Make sure that you understand the value, which takes us into that ownership. You need sweat equity from the person who's involved, but they need to be acting on good information, and then they need to invest and then reinvest and reinvest and reinvest through the goal setting, through the different pieces of the top 1% program, through the coaching and training that we do. And then the direction. You need to understand where you're headed, and then but really importantly, you need to know that direction. You need to know where the final destination is, how long it might take to get there, what you're going to need for resources along the way, and you need to know what the next step is. So in less than 7 minutes, that is the challenge. The challenge is people have not seen a lot of other people typically get to that top 1%. And so since they don't have that personal connection where they can ask somebody, or they might not even share all the information, and they don't necessarily know where you're coming from, and they're not a trainer or a coach at a top level, so they're not necessarily going to know even how to direct you. And then that next piece is, if you haven't seen it before, then how are you going to imagine it? It's not even a part of your reality. And if you're stopping for directions for somebody and they've never been there before, they can be the nicest person on the planet. They can be, well, they're a good person. Like, she's a nice person, he's a nice person. That's great. And their intention might be there, but if they're not acting on quality information and they haven't been there before, how are they going to get you there? So that's what we do. And that's why the top 1% and goal setting is critical.